Okay, so a high school wrestler is now keying us all into a national controversy. 17-year-old Mac Beggs, a transgender boy forced to compete with girls in a wrestling championship because state policy requires athletes to compete in their birth category. So Mac won the Texas State girls wrestling title. Many now are questioning if the competition was fair. By the way, on both sides, because the transgender advocates say he should be wrestling against boys like he wants to. This, of course, is a window into a larger political battle that is fueled with misinformation and deception. Let's discuss. CNN political commentator and host of the Ben Ferguson Show, Ben Ferguson. First, what's your take on the tournament, my friend?
Well, first off, I think take the transgendered issue out of it for a second. If you are taking testosterone, which is a performance-enhancing drug in sports, you shouldn't be able to wrestle. And this gave a completely unfair advantage to this participant. You can talk about that whether you are in your age group or in your sex group that you are associated with. If you're taking something that's performance-enhancing, you're not a real champion. You cheated and you won. Now, the state has, I do think, some blame for this by having it where they're even allowing these testosterone to be used if they are prescribed by a doctor. That's where I think the big fix probably needs to come.
The irony is that if there were acceptance, we wouldn't have had this issue because this kid would be wrestling against boys. But just so we know, and for those as you're learning about this issue.
But even then, though,
let me just so people know.
Here's the thing.
But hold on, Ben. Let's just clarify one thing. The science you have to be very careful about, okay? The amount of hormone that this kid is given is the minimum standard they can give to replicate the output of a boy. So it's not like a super amount of testosterone. It's not like these kids are going to be superhuman. It is the opposite. They are given the minimum. Scientifically, that is the outcome. If you look and do the research as I have, you'll see that. But that's not really the issue. The issue is acceptance. If this state allowed this kid to wrestle against boys, which is what he wants, we wouldn't be talking about this case right now.
But you also have to look at there has to be a standard. And I think it's not insane or crazy for a state to say that you compete with a sex that's on your birth certificate. That is what I would refer to as logical. It is illogical to somehow imply that this kid is a victim because he decided to do something and to change something, and therefore you change the entire sport around it. That is the part that I think many people are sitting here saying, hey, if you want to compete in a sport period, then you cannot be taking performance-enhancing drugs and do it. But to say that we should change the entire way that sports is done because of one person and their decision to do something, that is unrealistic.
But the premise is flawed. Because the logic requires you to believe that of course you do. That's why we're having the discussion. That transgender doesn't count. But it does count, and that's why we're having this bigger debate about what you allow trans kids to have access to and what you don't. The bathrooms, the locker rooms, it's all related. And people who share your idea are using misinformation and mythology here. The idea of
if you let misinformation.
Well, of course it is, because the idea that they're going to have genitals waved in their face. My 12-year-old daughter, she's going to have genitals waved in her face. That's what you on the left want. You realize that that's an absurd notion, right?
Well, one, I'm on the right, and second of all, that is not the notion that the people on the right have been saying, that you're going to have genitals thrown in your face in a locker room. What we're saying is it is not abnormal or crazy or unlogical to say that if you are born a boy, that you use the boys' restroom / locker room.
But what if you identify as a girl?
You go in.
But you're simplifying the idea of gender and sex. Look, we've heard this. This is not a novel concept.
Chris,
we have the Fourth Circuit.
Chris,
the Fourth Circuit just said what I'm saying.
All right, and guess what? Sometimes you have judges that are incorrect.
The Department of Education has said it. The Department of Justice has said it.
The majority of Americans,
courts across the country have said it.
They think the majority of Americans, the majority of parents who've spoken out on this issue, and if you look at the actual data behind the polls that have been done on this, they say they don't think it's a crazy idea to have girls wrestle with girls, boys wrestle with boys, and if you're taking testosterone, that is called cheating. And that is the reason why I think it's absurd that we're making this into such a big issue when the majority of Americans agree with me on this, that it is pretty normal. It's been normal throughout history to say that it's best if you're a boy to go to the boys' locker room, and if you're a girl, go to the girls' locker room. That's not insane.
What happens when the girl identifies as a boy and wants to go to the boys' locker room, or vice versa, to play into the fear? And for you to say that there are none on the right who are making about what I'm saying is demonstrably false.
Very few are making.
Go to my Twitter feed,
very
brother.
Few, though,
they are putting pictures of my face on a guy exposing himself to a 12-year-old girl to say Cuomo's okay with this because he wants transgender people to have the right to go to the bathroom that they feel comfortable in. You're denying that.
If your argument, Chris, if your argument is trolls on Twitter are the majority of Americans, that is insanity. Go look at my Twitter feed after this segment's over. We both should be able to agree there are crazies on the left and crazies on the right.
No,
and there's trolls out there in the world.
Of course,
that's
what
not
I'm
the
saying
majority
is,
of the Republican. Hold on, but that's not the majority of Republicans out there are not making the argument that you're implying that somehow that they're saying that people are walking into locker rooms and throwing around their genitals in people's face. That is not the argument of the majority of those that are conservatives like myself. I've never made that argument. That's a bad argument to be making here. The argument I'm making, to be very clear, is it is not insane. In fact, it's very rational, logical, and traditional to imply that you should have boys go to the boys' locker room, girls go to the girls' locker room, boys wrestle with boys, and girls wrestle with girls. And if you're using testosterone, you should be ineligible for that sport.
First of all,
if you choose to change your identity, if you choose to change your identity, that's your decision, but it should disqualify you while you're taking testosterone from wrestling, whether you're a girl or a boy, whether you're wrestling with girls or boys, because you have an unfair advantage.
Well, what I'm saying is this. First of all, you got to look at the science, because it's not like when somebody's taking it in Major League Baseball because of the advantages it gives. It's done to replicate what a boy would normally have, not to give superpower, but we get back to the same point, which is you should let these kids be where they're most comfortable. This is about accommodation. All the data proves
the entire sport
out.
Because of one kid?
Do you really believe that? You think every time that someone comes in, boys like he wants to, like he should be. But this state law is intolerance in practice. They don't want the kid to have what he wants, so they're forcing him to wrestle with girls. You don't want the kid to use the bathroom they want because you don't like it based on your tradition. I'm saying let the kids go where they want. Let the kids go where they want.
It's intolerant to say.
Yes.
It's intolerant to say that the majority of people, when they think that boys should go to the boys' locker room, girls should go to the girls' locker room, somehow not even listening to their idea and saying that therefore I'm intolerant or they are intolerant. Shows you the hypocrisy that of the intolerant argument you're making.
No, it doesn't.
Here.
Here's why.
This has been traditional.
Here's why.
You don't change an entire sport because of one individual and their views and how they want to be the opposite sex of what they are.
I get you on the sport. I'm saying the kid should wrestle with boys. That's what he wants. That's what would have been fair here. I get you on that.
You don't always get what you want. You don't always get what you want, Chris.
That's
if you wanted to go out right now and you wanted to go be in CrossFit for women, should you be able to apply it because you say that you're a woman? That therefore,
that's a myth.
It's not a myth. That's a legitimate argument.
No, it's not a legitimate argument, and here's why. Here's why it's not legitimate.
I'm going to be a girl today.
I let you make your argument. Now I'll make mine. Okay? It doesn't happen. Transgender doesn't happen on a whim. It's a continuum of time and hormones and pain and anxiety. And I challenge you and everybody who's listening to go find me a case of indecent exposure by a transgender person in a bathroom. It doesn't happen. And if you look at the data, the only thing that you accomplish by doing what you say is traditional is that you scar these kids as an other, and their rates of depression and suicide and non-acceptance go up. And if you let it happen this way, nobody gets hurt except your idea of what's right.
No, to imply somehow that anybody that believes and actually having boys be boys or looking at a birth certificate and deciding that that birth certificate of male or female should decide where you wrestle and what sports you play, to imply that somehow that suicide or depression is on me. Look, I feel bad for this young individual because now he's in the spotlight in a way, but the fact is that is obviously not fun for him. Getting booed when you win certainly is not an exciting moment, but he chose to be in this position. And the fact is, I feel bad for everybody else that lost to someone that was cheating, using testosterone, and not being man enough to admit the fact that you have an unfair advantage. As a former college athlete, when you take any type of performance-enhancing drug, it gives you an unfair advantage. And when those kids in high school or college lose, that is unfair to everybody else who's playing by the rules.
If the kid was allowed to do what he wants, none of this would have happened. Ben Ferguson, always appreciate.
Where do you draw the line? Thanks, man. Good to talk to you.
The law, and it's going to happen with the Supreme Court next month. Allison.
Okay, Chris.